A growing scandal involving Prince Harry and his last remaining genuine charity project, the Invictus Games.
Absolutely. What we're really now seeing is that both of them, having posed as the victim for so long, are really the aggressors.
No, Tom Bauer is observing the damage being done to the veterans. That's why he spoke out.
Tom Bauer is getting harassed by the Sussex squad over there. People telling them to call the police.
When does a charity for wounded heroes transform into a $63 million PR vehicle? And have Prince Harry and Meghan Markle dragged Invictus Games down with them?
In this case, we're not dealing with the smartest person in the world. We know that from all the things we've seen. Seriously, she's not.
Yeah.
You know, she's nice and she's smart. I mean, she can get along in the world by herself.
Tom Bauer bits for betrayal. And so he's talking a lot about Invictus, which we've talked about before. Invictus Games that's the charity that Prince Harry set up, and it's a competition between wounded warriors. And we both love that, right?
Oh, yeah, okay.
A deeper look into Tom Bauer's latest claims about the Invictus Games has stirred up intense debate and controversy that refuses to settle down. Tom Bauer is said to have personally attended the Invictus Games, sitting among the audience and observing the wheelchair basketball matches unfold in real time with his own eyes. According to what has been reported, the number of paying spectators inside the venue reportedly stood at just 43, a figure that immediately raised eyebrows and questions about the scale and atmosphere of the event. What makes this even more striking is the claim that the wounded veterans competing on the court were not financially supported in the way many would expect from a high-profile charitable event. The statement, and those wounded veterans on the court, they paid their own way to get there.
Bill Simmons of Spotify once called Harry and Meghan a pair of grifters, and in totally unrelated news, the Vancouver Games last year for Invictus cost $63 million.
Tom Bauer's Revenge, which came out a few years ago, and Betrayal, which is his latest book that's coming out, all about Prince Harry and Meghan Markle. And I wanted to talk to you about some of his newest revelations in Betrayal, which comes out March 26th, because Harry and Meghan are having a conniption fit. He's talking a lot about Invictus.
Is attributed to a former senior Invictus executive who was later removed from their position, adding even more tension to an already heated narrative. That same quote has been described as one of the most revealing and blunt assessments ever shared about the situation, and it continues to circulate widely in discussions online. Tom Bauer, known for his investigative biographies that often focus on powerful public figures, is once again at the center of attention, with supporters and critics sharply divided over his reporting style. He previously faced criticism from Harry's representatives, who labeled him fixated and deranged, yet he continued his work and reportedly traveled to Vancouver in February 2025, armed with notes, observations, and detailed documentation from the event. His upcoming or recently released book titled Betrayal is said to have triggered significant concern within the Sussex circle, especially following the earlier impact of Spare. Harry's spokesperson responded strongly to Bauer's reporting, describing it as deranged conspiracy and melodrama. That reaction alone has sparked further debate among observers who question why such strong language was used against a veteran royal biographer with a long publishing history. When someone with 12 books, legal experience, and a track record of defending his work in legal challenges is described in such extreme terms.
The royal biographer, this is Jack Royston Special, he wrote this, who famously called her a brave and hussy, attended the Invictus Games, with one account saying, "Somebody call the police." He was in the author. He was the audience. The author was in the audience because he's allowed to be, Sue, right? He's a public citizen. And he's accosted by this Sussex squad member.
So when Meghan came along into the scene, I just thought, this is fascinating. How is this going to play out? To tell the truth, I spoke to very few friends of Meghan because she put a fatwa on anyone talking to me who she could. So I sent off dozens and dozens of emails to her friends, and most of them didn't even reply.
It naturally raises questions about what exactly is causing such alarm behind the scenes. According to multiple claims, Bauer's information was not based on hearsay or speculation, but drawn directly from official Invictus financial records. These are said to include documents filed with the UK Charity Commission and additional records published through Canadian governmental sources, forming the backbone of his financial analysis. This detail has been emphasized repeatedly in discussions, as it suggests the data originates from formal filings rather than informal commentary. The financial breakdown presented in these claims paints a striking picture of scale and cost. The 2025 Invictus Games in Vancouver are reported to have cost approximately 63 million Canadian dollars, with 534 veterans participating in total. When those figures are divided, it results in an estimated $118,000 per competitor, a number that immediately captures attention due to its sheer size and implications. That figure has been repeatedly highlighted because of what it could theoretically provide in real-world support for wounded veterans. For example,
The Invictus Games was supported with Palace funding via the Royal Foundation, Palace staff, Palace logistics, and Palace diplomatic access. It was a full-scale, institutional project designed to rehabilitate wounded veterans.
$118,000 could potentially fund a fully wheelchair-accessible vehicle, allowing a veteran to regain independence and mobility in daily life. It could also cover several years of structured PTSD therapy, offering consistent weekly treatment sessions rather than long waiting lists or limited access programs. On top of that, it could contribute to major home modifications, including ramps, widened doorways, and accessible bathrooms, fundamentally transforming a veteran's living conditions. These comparisons are used to emphasize the perceived gap between direct support and event spending priorities. According to the narrative being discussed, this is where critics like Tom Bauer and analyst Rachel Maxwell focus their attention, highlighting how budgets are allocated versus what individual veterans might receive if funds were distributed differently. Another media figure, Paula Froelich, has also been mentioned in relation to bringing attention to these financial discussions in broader public conversations. Further claims suggest that instead of full financial support, veterans were required to cover certain personal costs themselves, including travel arrangements, accommodation prior to arrival, and in some cases even equipment and insurance needs. This has sparked intense reactions, especially around the idea that participants in a charity event designed for wounded veterans may have had to self-fund essential aspects of their participation. The statement, "Let me say that again, because some of you may need to hear it twice,"
that actually support veterans, may give them prosthetics if they need, may build a wheelchair ramp at their home, which is necessary, may do things that really help people as opposed to helping Harry's ego.
Well, exactly, because Paula, seriously, think about this. If you asked all of those competitors at the Invictus Games, what is more important here, you could get a check today for $120,000, which would transform your life, or you could be part of what is effectively a PR stunt. I mean, all of those details and betrayal were just so damning.
Is used in the discussion to emphasize the emotional weight behind these claims, underlining how shocking the allegations appear to some audiences. There are also reports involving individual cases, including a Canadian veteran named Scott Snow, who allegedly suffered serious injuries during the 2023 Dusseldorf Games after falling backward in his wheelchair. The injuries described include head, neck, and spine trauma, and it is claimed that he later faced financial complications because coverage was not provided as expected. This story has been used to highlight concerns around insurance and participant protection policies within the event structure. At the same time, Tom Bauer's work allegedly references concerns over spending priorities, including claims that funds were directed toward high-end travel arrangements such as private jets, luxury hotels, and transport services linked to senior figures, including Harry and Meghan. These claims remain heavily debated and are presented in the context of broader scrutiny rather than confirmed fact. One former executive is quoted as saying, "She's bling, not rehabilitation." a statement that has become widely circulated in discussions surrounding the financial priorities of the organization. That phrase is often referenced as a summary of internal criticism before the executive in question was reportedly removed from their role. Attention then shifts toward financial analyst Rachel Maxwell, described as a former finance professional and now an airline pilot who operates the Montecito Minimalist account, who allegedly reviewed Invictus budget documents in detail. She's said to have gone line by line through official figures covering accommodation, catering, transport, and staffing costs, using only publicly available data from Invictus reports. Her analysis is presented as part of a broader attempt to break down how funds are distributed and whether the spending aligns with the mission of supporting wounded veterans in practical, direct ways. A wave of controversy has been building after new claims tied to the Invictus Games started circulating, with intense scrutiny and sharp public debate exploding all at once. The situation being described centers around financial transparency, event structure, and questions raised by investigative author Tom Bauer, whose reporting has once again placed him at the center of a storm involving the Invictus organization and its leadership. She's reported to have broken down $6.8 million in verified expenses against a $10.8 million allocation, covering only two major categories: accommodation and workforce support. And even then, the numbers did not fully align as expected. After going through the figures carefully, she discovered a missing gap of roughly $4 million that could not immediately be traced in the publicly available breakdown, which instantly raised further questions about where funds were actually being allocated. That missing trail pushed her to dig deeper into government procurement records and financial contracts tied to the event infrastructure. During this process, she uncovered a British Columbia government document showing a commitment of 15 million Canadian dollars directed towards the Games. But what stood out most dramatically was the fact that the entire budget appendix was fully redacted, completely blacked out from public view, with no clear explanation provided. A government document tied directly to public spending being fully hidden sparked immediate concern and confusion among observers who expected transparency for such a large-scale international sporting event. She later uploaded the document to her website and encouraged her followers to pressure Canadian authorities for clarity and accountability, which escalated the situation rapidly into public attention. Only 3 hours after that call for scrutiny, the Invictus Canada website reportedly went offline entirely, fueling even more speculation and discussion online. When the site eventually returned, the previously accessible document had been removed completely, and the platform had been restructured in a way that required Dropbox login access just to download official files, effectively allowing tracking of who accessed internal documents. This level of restricted access was later highlighted by Bauer as part of a broader pattern of opacity surrounding financial reporting. Even more concerning for critics, the licensing fee paid by the Vancouver Host Corporation to the Invictus Games Foundation was also redacted, leaving no public visibility into how much British Columbia taxpayer money actually flowed through the agreement. And when the UK charity filings finally came into focus, the timeline itself became part of the controversy. The Invictus organisation submitted its 2024 accounts 2 years later than expected, and when those numbers finally surfaced, they painted a complex and conflicting financial picture that immediately drew attention. Income reportedly rose by 41% in 2024, which on the surface sounds like strong financial growth and positive momentum for the organisation. However, in the exact same period, direct grants to veteran support organisations dropped sharply by 63%. Falling from £534,000 to just £200,000, creating a stark contrast between incoming revenue and outgoing veteran-focused aid. At the same time, internal staffing structures also changed, including the addition of a new six-figure executive position that critics say was never fully justified in public reporting. Legal expenses also reportedly tripled from £45,000 to £150,000, with no detailed explanation provided in the filing, adding yet another layer of unanswered questions. Meanwhile, cash reserves reportedly increased to £2.3 million, suggesting a growing financial buffer within the organisation. Another unusual entry involved a mysterious American for-profit company called Dunes LLC, which reportedly received nearly £30,000 in 2023 before disappearing from the following year's records without explanation. Even more confusing, the same financial filing allegedly contained two different company registration numbers, one on the cover page and a different one in the balance sheet, creating inconsistencies that critics say should not exist in properly audited charity documents. These patterns, according to Bauer's book Betrayal, have allegedly appeared repeatedly over several years, forming what he describes as a consistent issue of opacity. Whenever questions are raised, critics claim the responses often fall into silence, legal warnings, or direct pushback against those asking for clarification, which only intensifies public curiosity rather than resolving it. This is the detail that continues to stand out for many observers, including Bauer himself, who reportedly focused heavily on what he witnessed firsthand at a wheelchair basketball match in Vancouver between Team America and Team Nigeria. He counted only 43 paying spectators in attendance at an event meant to celebrate 534 veterans representing 23 countries from around the world. That contrast between participation and audience size became a focal point of his reporting, especially given the scale and cost of the event. According to his description, much of the remaining audience was not made up of ticket-paying attendees, but rather groups brought in and positioned around high-profile guests, including Prince Harry and Meghan Markle, for photo opportunities. After the match ended, he described American athletes leaving the court in wheelchairs, with some later standing and walking away, while acknowledging that some participants did live with real and invisible injuries, such as PTSD. That distinction has become part of a wider debate about mental health recognition versus how large-scale funding is being allocated. Critics have raised a central question. If mental health and rehabilitation are the core mission, why is the funding directed toward a $63 million global sporting spectacle instead of expanding direct therapeutic services for veterans themselves? This is where figures like Dominic Reed enter the discussion, as he reportedly resigned after expressing concerns about how the Games had evolved over time. Before stepping down, Reed allegedly stated that media coverage had shifted focus away from competition and towards celebrity influence, and he criticized internal leadership decisions for allowing what he described as a transformation into a more personality-driven event. Additional accounts referenced in Bauer's work also suggest that some Canadian executives felt the presence of Meghan Markle became more of a distraction than a support element during the Games. Reports claim she appeared in front of uniformed veterans wearing casual clothing, filmed content for streaming production projects, and left before the closing ceremony to return to California after ensuring sufficient media coverage had been captured. These moments have since been widely discussed online and used as symbolic examples in ongoing debates about the event's direction. One particular comment that gained significant attention online focused not on finances, but on optics and respect, with viewers reacting strongly to scenes involving veterans and public appearances. That emotional reaction has become part of the wider conversation, shaping public opinion heading into future Games. And now, attention is turning toward the upcoming Birmingham Invictus Games, scheduled for July 2027, raising even more questions about funding, scale, and public responsibility. The UK government has reportedly committed £26 million in public funding toward the event, even though Birmingham itself declared bankruptcy in 2023 with an £87 million deficit and massive financial liabilities still unresolved. Corporate sponsorship has also reportedly declined compared to previous years, with Vancouver hosting 44 partners, while Birmingham currently lists only 11 unnamed contributors, estimated at around £4 million total. That leaves a significant financial gap that critics argue may ultimately fall back onto taxpayers to cover. As the gap between funding needs and actual secured sponsorship continues to widen, public concern is growing around how future editions of the Games will be financed and whether transparency will improve moving forward. A deeper and far more controversial wave of discussion has emerged around the Birmingham Invictus Games preparations, with claims circulating that are raising serious questions about staffing, reputation, and long-term organizational stability all at once. According to reports being widely discussed, qualified professionals are allegedly turning down job offers connected to the Birmingham Organising Committee, specifically because of concerns tied to the current reputation and public perception of the Invictus brand itself. Even more striking, it is being claimed that the critical position of head of marketing and communications remains unfilled, despite the fact that the event is now just 14 months away from launch, which has created additional pressure and uncertainty inside planning circles. The advertised salary range of £36,000 to £60,000 has also become a talking point, with critics arguing that such compensation appears unusually low for a role tied to one of the most globally visible sporting and humanitarian events associated with modern British public life. This staffing gap has now become part of a wider debate about whether organisational structure, budget allocation, or reputational concerns are affecting recruitment at a moment when stability is urgently needed. The closer the deadline approaches, the more attention is being drawn to whether the event is fully prepared in terms of leadership, communications, and sponsorship coordination. At the centre of much of this ongoing narrative is investigative author Tom Bower, who has repeatedly argued in his book Betrayal that Prince Harry does not actively engage in traditional fundraising practices. According to Bower's interpretation, Harry has privately expressed discomfort with core fundraising activities such as donor networking, sponsorship events, and direct financial engagement, often described in charitable circles as glad-handing or pressing the flesh. However, critics argue that these very activities are essential to the functioning of large-scale charitable organisations, especially those that depend heavily on corporate partnerships and international donors. Without active fundraising leadership, they claim, the sustainability of such projects becomes increasingly difficult to maintain at scale. One particularly striking insider quote that has circulated widely suggests that if Meghan Markle were to attend future Birmingham events, some stakeholders would prefer that Harry comes alone, no Meghan. That statement, while not officially verified, has become symbolic in discussions about corporate sensitivity and donor perception. The reasoning behind this claim is tied to a broader belief that Harry's public presence no longer guarantees increased donations or sponsorship interest in the way it may have in earlier years. Instead, some argue that his association may actually complicate fundraising efforts depending on audience perception and media framing. This belief has been linked to a wider pattern of shifting institutional relationships across several organisations associated with Harry since stepping back from royal duties. These include Centrebal, African Parks, Centre for Effective Philanthropy, Better Up, and Invictus itself, all of which have reportedly experienced periods of restructuring, controversy, or leadership tension. In Betrayal, Bower focuses heavily on Centrebal, where internal conflict allegedly escalated into direct confrontation between leadership figures. Dr. Sophie Chandu, who served as chair, is said to have directly told Harry that public perception was becoming a major barrier, allegedly stating, "People don't want to be associated with your Netflix shows, and especially not with Meghan." That quote has become one of the most widely discussed lines in the broader debate around celebrity influence in philanthropy. She also reportedly emphasized that corporate donors, particularly those based in the United States, were increasingly focused on mission outcomes rather than personal brand association. In that context, funding would be directed toward the cause itself, not necessarily toward the individuals representing it publicly. At one point during internal discussions, Harry allegedly compared his situation to actor Johnny Depp, suggesting that Depp remained commercially successful despite facing public legal battles and reputational scrutiny. According to Bauer's account, this comparison did not resolve internal tensions and instead highlighted differing interpretations of public image versus institutional credibility. By March 2025, Harry reportedly resigned from Centerbale along with the co-founder and the entire board of trustees, marking a major structural collapse in leadership continuity. Bauer argues that this outcome reflects a deeper issue in Harry's approach to organizational leadership, particularly the belief that personal visibility itself functions as a form of contribution. From this perspective, appearing at events, being photographed, and maintaining a high-profile presence is seen as equivalent to fundraising impact. However, modern philanthropic systems in 2026 operate very differently, with donors increasingly demanding measurable results, financial transparency, and clear outcome reporting rather than symbolic association. This shift in expectations has become central to how organizations like Invictus are now being evaluated by external observers and critics alike. It is frequently noted that less than 0.1% of wounded veterans worldwide have ever participated in an Invictus Games event, a statistic often cited in discussions about scale versus investment. For comparison, the Wounded Warrior Project reportedly supports over 270,000 veterans annually through various programs and services, while Invictus has reached a significantly smaller participant base of 534 athletes. Despite operating with substantially higher reported budgets, this contrast has become a focal point in debates about efficiency, reach, and resource allocation across different veteran support models. Critics argue that such comparisons highlight the importance of evaluating impact not only through visibility, but also through measurable long-term outcomes for beneficiaries. Another major point of discussion involves the Archewell Foundation, which has reportedly never made a documented direct financial contribution to the Invictus Games Foundation. This claim has drawn attention because of the perceived expectation that a philanthropic organization linked so closely to the founders would provide direct financial support to its flagship initiative. Despite these criticisms, many supporters emphasize that the core concept of Invictus remains one of the most innovative rehabilitation ideas in modern sport. The principle of using athletic competition as a form of recovery, confidence building, and psychological resilience continues to be widely praised across medical and veteran support communities. The idea itself centers on participation rather than performance, where veterans are not defined by winning medals but by the act of showing up, competing, and reclaiming personal strength through sport. Supporters argue that this philosophy alone carries significant emotional and psychological value regardless of financial debates. However, critics counter that the execution of this vision has gradually shifted over time. They argue that what began as a focused rehabilitation initiative has evolved into a large-scale international production involving extensive media coverage, celebrity visibility, and high operational costs. According to Bauer's account in Betrayal, many of the original individuals who helped establish Invictus have since stepped away or been replaced, leading to concerns about institutional memory and continuity of mission. He describes this transition as a shift from veteran-centered rehabilitation toward a more media-driven organizational structure. In this framing, the concern is not that the event lacks meaning, but that its direction may have drifted away from its founding priorities. With a reported budget scale of around $63 million, critics question whether the allocation of resources aligns proportionally with direct veteran support outcomes. As the Birmingham Invictus Games approach just 14 months away, pressure continues to build around funding clarity, staffing completion, and sponsorship stability. The situation is further complicated by the financial condition of Birmingham itself, which has faced significant fiscal challenges in recent years, raising additional concerns about reliance on public funding. Corporate sponsorship levels have also become a major point of uncertainty, with previous editions reportedly attracting a larger number of commercial partners compared to current projections. Where earlier host cities secured dozens of sponsors, Birmingham is reportedly operating with a far smaller confirmed base at this stage, increasing dependence on government and institutional support. This growing gap between funding needs and confirmed sponsorship has intensified scrutiny over how the event will be financed in its final stages of preparation. Questions are being raised about whether public funds will ultimately need to fill the shortfall and how that responsibility will be justified to taxpayers. As all of these issues continue to develop simultaneously, the central debate is no longer just about the event itself, but about structure, leadership, and long-term sustainability. And beneath everything lies a broader question about whether the current model still reflects the original mission, or whether it has evolved into something fundamentally different from what was first envisioned. And that's where everything currently stands with this situation. With Birmingham just around the corner, there's going to be a lot more attention on how the planning comes together, who steps into key roles, and whether the funding and structure can actually hold up under pressure. A lot of people are clearly going to keep watching this closely as more details come out, because this isn't something that wraps up quietly at this point. If you've been following this story all the way through, take a second to drop a like, share your thoughts in the comments, and subscribe so you don't miss what comes next.